Hey, how about you, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Auburn Live Show, Recruiting Edition, also known as the Shriveled Pod. I'm your host, Jeffrey Lee, Senior Recruiting Editor of Auburn Live on 3. If you're not a member of that site, you should be, because we've got a lot of scoop over there, got a lot of intel, got a lot of content, a lot of recruiting stuff, both football and basketball. And joined today by a guy who knows more than anybody on this subject, Mr. Cole Pinkston. Cole, how the hell are you, buddy?
And I'm doing great. Doing great. Had to change the location a little bit, but
Yeah, you're missing the green screen, buddy.
yeah. Well, you got to make adjustments. You know what I mean?
All. What are you adjusting to?
Oh, I just had to have my kid with me, so I had to make some adjustments there. But
your baby goat.
That's right. Which I mean, he could be on the show too, but he probably won't cooperate that well. So we're going to try to keep him out of it for now.
Well, if you are listening, you probably recognize that somebody's missing. Mr. Jhead, who will be with us shortly.
Yes.
He'll be here shortly, folks. So just hang on for Mr. Jhead. But until he gets here, we've got a lot to talk about today, Cole. We wanted to go ahead and get started. For those of you listening, we are recording on Thursday afternoon. You're probably listening to this on Friday, so keep that in mind moving forward. Today, Auburn now has 2 commitments. Big commitment earlier this week from a 4-star. He's listed as a linebacker, but Auburn's recruiting him to play safety. 4-star Terence Love. Cole, what do you think?
Well, I've been saying for a while that this was a guy that could probably make something official. Well, we've been saying for a while that he could probably go official soon. And he was not wanting to wait any longer. He went ahead and made another visit after he'd visited a bunch of times and said, all right, let's do this. So that was big. And if you ask anybody on Auburn staff, that was one of the big ones. That was one of the definitely one of the top targets on the board, regardless of position. He's just he's big. He's got the size, he's got the athleticism. His highlight tape is a lot of fun to watch. He's got the one-handed catches and all that kind of stuff going on. So just one of those athletes that could actually fit some different places, but you get him on board, doesn't matter. You don't think too hard about that one.
Well, it's big because he's a great athlete. He's also a really great person. And but from everything we know about Auburn's recruiting, and especially at Langston Hughes High School, where there's several other prospects, to get a guy like Terence Love in the boat, we thought it might be Josh Horton that popped first, and we'll get to him in a minute. But and I tell you this, Cole, I thought one of the more interesting quotes that Terence Love had was to Jeremy Johnson, on 3's Jeremy Johnson. I think it was on Wednesday. He was talking about his Auburn commitment, and he said, "I've known for a few weeks. That's why I wanted to take a visit, because I wanted to go do it while I was on campus." And if you'll remember, we all thought he was going to commit on the big junior day. Hey,
there he is.
Hey, what's up, fellas?
Welcome in, big dog.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, not bad, man. Not bad. You're on Jhead time.
No, we are.
Yeah, we are on Jhead time.
I like it. Have we already started?
We have started Jhead, but we're on our first topic, Mr. Terence Love. You ever might have heard of him?
May or may not have.
Yep. So, well, we were talking about Terence Love being the first of the Langston Hughes to commit. I also thought it was interesting that he told Jeremy Johnson that he wanted to do this a couple of weeks ago. And I think on that big junior day for Auburn, we were all expecting Terence Love to commit. And I think I actually said, hey, holler back on Sunday, when everybody was wanting a commitment. And he didn't do it. And I was going, well, damn, maybe these guys are all like taking a wait and see approach. But then he just kind of came out of nowhere after A-Day game and went ahead and committed. And I didn't even see him there. Did you see him there, Cole?
Yes. He walked out, got on a golf cart, and that was it.
Okay.
He didn't. He was in. It looked like he was in a hurry. I said, we're just going to let him go. We'll catch him. So,
but it just goes to show you that he said he'd known for a few weeks that Auburn was this destination. He just wanted to take one more visit to do it while he was on campus. And obviously he informed the coaches Saturday of his intention to commit. And then I think it was Monday. Was it Monday when he committed?
Sunday.
It was.
Was it Sunday? Well, whatever. Earlier this week, man. But yeah, I thought it was big for a lot of reasons. Jhead and Cole was talking about his thoughts on him as a player. Yeah, he's got that great size. He's kind of got that Chris Frost. I could do a lot of different things. He's probably not as big as Chris Frost, but very athletic guy like that.
Yeah.
Listed as a safety on 3, but Auburn's certainly recruiting him to play. Listed as a linebacker, but Auburn's recruiting him to play safety. Your thoughts on T. Love?
Just a really huge pickup from a momentum standpoint, not only because of the prospects that are at Langston Hughes, but his popularity within the Atlanta region. Really a kid that's popular with a lot of recruits, a nationally ranked 150 recruit that shows that, okay, there's some substance here to this staff. There's a guy that trusts them that's one of them. And beyond that, when you talk about his skill set on the field, and I think Cole covered this really well, but he's a guy that's going to come in and probably play the nickel / the star for us, a guy that has the ability to be physical, come down, from the boundary and play that lane, be a real asset in the run game, also has the capability of flipping his hips, being able to run with a tight end or a slot wide receiver or a running back coming out of the backfield. You just don't see guys that are his height at about 6'2", 6'3", and his weight that can run the way he can. And anytime you can add a special athlete of his capability and caliber, it's a victory. And like I said, not just because of the player, but because of what he brings to the table from Auburn needed somebody to believe in, if that makes sense. They needed somebody to show that there's some trust there within the staff and other recruits, specifically a guy of his popularity. So, I mean, it's just big all the way around when you look at every aspect of it.
Auburn certainly hopes that he is the first domino from that school to fall, because you've got 4-star offensive tackle Bo Hughley, who's committed to Georgia, but he told On3 earlier this week that he's listening. He continues to listen to Auburn now. He doubled down on his Georgia commitment, but we know how that goes, dude. That just means Georgia leads in the public eye.
There you go.
Interesting to see what happens with him. He's been to Auburn several times, has a great relationship with Will Friend. Joe Bernardi also in the same breath as Will Friend there with a relationship status. And then you've got 4-star tight end Jelani Thurman and 3-star defensive tackle Joshua Horton, who came out Thursday with his top 10.
Yes, top 10.
Top 10, but he prefaced that by commitment soon. And Jeremy Johnson also had a story on Horton, and I thought some of the quotes he had on Auburn was very telling. They're high on the list, very high. So certainly going to be keeping an eye on him. If Auburn were to get Terence Love and Joshua Horton, then you're thinking, man, you've got the inside track now with Jelani Thurman, with Bo Hughley. And let's don't forget about the wide receiver. Isn't there a wide receiver?
Robert Lockhart.
There you go, Lockhart. Yeah. And also Prentice Air Nolan, the 2024 quarterback, who is definitely a dude to watch, who visited Auburn, I think, last weekend.
Was it Monday?
I think it was during the week, wasn't it?
Right. It was the previous week during Monday or Tuesday, Cole. Is that right? I think that's when you got a story about him.
That's when it was, I believe.
So a lot, and I think not to kind of skip over what Jay had said, that Terence Love isn't just a Langston Hughes connection, man. He is the Atlanta area is stacked, and Auburn is definitely recruiting that area, that state, very hard this year. I feel like they kind of got away from it last year. I don't know if it was by design or if it was just like, we're taking what we can get at this point because of the COVID year and the new relationships and kind of new to everybody. But certainly this year, Georgia is a high priority. And I think after you saw Terence Love commit, you saw the pipeline memes come from Auburn, the hashtags from Auburn. They're making the Peach State a top priority for them in this class, and really excited to see where they go from here.
Yeah, Jeffrey, it's almost like the state of Georgia gets maybe an earlier start than some other states in recruiting because they have so many good prospects there. And last year they were playing catch up, and they said, yeah, you know what, we're going to have to go for guys we think we got a real shot with. And it just weren't too many from that state. That's just how it played out. But now you were getting these guys on campus this whole time. You got a whole year under your belt, and there's some real progress being made over there. And Terence Love is a lot like Damari Austin over there, where he's real popular and he can help being a face for Auburn in that area.
And you think about the additions to the coaching staff, not only the coaching staff, but
There
the
you
recruiting
go.
staff and the connections that they have within that state. I mean,
Hold on, Jhead. Hang on. What's wrong with your mic?
Check one. You got me?
Is there like a knob on there?
You kind of sound like Betty Boo.
How about now?
Much better.
Yeah, you got
Much
it.
better. All right. So, but you think about the connections that the staff has. Obviously, our new player personnel guy, Stephen Ruzick, has contacts throughout the state. Jimmy Brumbaugh is a guy that's recruited the state of Georgia. C-Rob has recruited the state of Georgia and is from the Atlanta Norcross area.
Yeah.
Just a lot. And obviously, Zach has made some inroads there in Atlanta. So a lot of connections to the state of Georgia, but in addition to the state of Georgia, specifically the city of Atlanta, which is the metropolitan that's got everything that you want. You know what I mean? And literally 2 hours down the road. And I don't think it's just been this past cycle that we missed out, but you think about Gus's last year at the helm during that COVID season. I mean, I think we took one guy from the state of Georgia. That should never be the case ever at Auburn.
Right.
You should never only get one prospect from the state of Georgia.
Gus's last class, they signed one guy from Georgia.
One guy. I think it was that kid that was just across the state over there in Columbus, the defensive tackle that transferred out to Missouri.
Oh my God, that dude.
Oh yeah. Ian Matthews. I think that was our only prospect from that state. We had banked on landing Trevin Wallace, but that ended up not breaking once T. Will left.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Trevin Wallace went in a different direction.
Was it the 2021 class? Was that 21?
Yes. That was the 21. Well, I'll take that back. Joko Willis, but he was a JUCO guy. So
I don't count him.
No, I mean.
He probably doesn't count. Yeah. No, that was it. I'm looking at it right now.
Yep. That was the only player from the state of Georgia. So you think about 2 straight cycles where Georgia hasn't been. And look, I think we landed 4 or 5 guys from the state of Georgia, just not specifically from Atlanta. So they put an emphasis on it where that talent is, but they're putting even a bigger emphasis on it this year. And Cole's right. There's just more connections. They've known these kids longer. They've been able to get them on campus. And I'm really excited to see what a kid like Lockhart does during evaluation season. And if he can show that he's healthy, if he's got that speed back. Because I really do think we got a chance to land the Fab 5 from Langston Hughes. I mean, I think this could be, as opposed to the Dillard 5, you could be talking about the Langston Hughes 5, 4 years down the line if this breaks the right way.
And by the way, last year's class, they got 4 guys from the state of Georgia, not counting Zach Calzada, who is originally from Georgia. So, yeah, they're trying to expand on that, I think.
I agree.
J.D. Ram, Damari, Holden Gerner,
and Caleb Wooden. Yep.
And I'd say every one of those are guys that are probably projected to play early within their career.
Yeah, it's a pretty good bet. I mean, even if they're sort of down the line as far as the state rankings go in Georgia, that they're going to be, pretty solid. So never a bad idea to go and recruit there.
No, not at all. But I think that speaks probably to the evaluation prowess of the staff. And I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole because there's other things that we need to talk about, specifically other visitors that were here on campus. But I really hold in high regard how this staff evaluates, specifically for a kid like Caleb Wooden.
Yeah.
Who's made noise, wasn't a highly rated guy, but made noise all spring about being around the ball, creating turnovers, being physical in the run game. And this a kid we brought into camp, and there were several other high-rated guys that we had in that same camp. I think Emory Floyd was one of those.
Yeah.
We saw those two side by side, decided, you know what, we like this kid better. Be damned what his rating is. We think he can play at the next level. And
it's interesting, Jhead, talking to Caleb. I've got a pretty good relationship with him and Damari Alston. Boy, those 2 guys just that stand out in my mind as going, look, I'll be fine. They have the confidence that goes with it. And it's not cockiness, it's confidence. I'm ready to go in there and compete. I'm not scared of this. I'm ready to be there. I got a countdown to the day.
And that's what you want.
That's the kind of guys they seem to like,
I agree. Guys that aren't scared to come in and fight for a position, guys that are committed to their process, guys that are committed to their culture, that truly want to see, okay, if I lay everything on the line, can I go in here and can I win a spot?
Yeah, exactly.
And there are some guys that just want to go where there's guaranteed playing time. I mean, I think you're seeing that right now with a transfer in Amarius Mims, who's looking at places where he can go and start right now. And
Yeah.
look, I'm not trying to knock a kid like that. I mean, there's value in getting on the field. Don't get me wrong. But when you're trying to build a culture, a championship culture, competition is a key part of that. And you want guys that aren't scared to compete.
That's right.
Caleb Wooden. I was reading Cole's story from last year. He had offers from Georgia Tech, Louisville, and West Virginia, Duke, Appalachian State. And this kid, I would expect to see him on special teams at the least as a true freshman.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I wrote this the other day too. If you want a good look to the future, usually guys that are on the kickoff team, punt team, kick return, whatever, those are your guys that are doing well in practice and they needed to find somewhere to put them. In other words, okay, we're not ready to put you out there with our veteran linebackers yet. Let's put you on special teams and go make a play. That's kind of how that works in my experience.
Absolutely. Well, and from a coaching standpoint, and you've seen it, Cole, if a guy's making plays on special teams, that means the stage is not too big for him. Now, does he understand all the concepts and the things that he probably needs to do at his position? Probably not. But when he needs to go make a play and he's going down there and he's not scared to take on, be that wedge buster. He's not scared to run down the field like his hair is on fire and make a play in front of 87,000 screaming fans. That says something.
Yep.
That says something about your willingness to compete.
Yep.
Hey, so turning the page a little bit, we're sticking with the A-Day theme here. I don't want to spend too much time on the A-Day because this is a recruiting show, but I will say I am interested in getting both of your brief comments on what you saw at A-Day, if it means anything to you. Did anybody jump out to you? Some of the highlights, I guess. Cole, lead us off.
Yeah, I've gone back through and watched a lot of it. I thought watched the quarterbacks real close. It's hard to really get a good gauge, but I like the way Ashford looks at times. He threw a couple of errant passes though. TJ Finley still kind of doing that. Really, the only one to me that didn't throw a bad ball was Holden Gerner. Now, the touchdown pass he threw was a little low to Landon King. It was just an unreal catch over somebody. So I think that's a good sign, too, that you have Landon King making plays like that out there.
He's going to be good. Or if he's not, I mean,
he is.
He's going to be as good as we thought he was coming out of high school. He's one of those dudes, right?
I agree. I still think he's learning things as far as the receiver position goes and trying to be a tight end, too, a little bit. But obviously, they just want to give him the ball in man-on-man coverage. It's just a matchup problem, So I was watching for that, and to me, I thought the receivers were better than we had been hearing. They didn't have any drops. It's hard to
that one.
Oh yeah, Dawson had the one. Okay, Jay Fair had a couple of tough catches. Xavier Capers made plays after the catch. Just a couple of guys that really looked like they could step up, and freshmen like Caleb Wooden was real active. He was all over the place. Powell Gordon was all over the place.
Yeah, Powell sure was.
But I could ramble on that for a while, but those are just some initial thoughts from it.
Jhead, what you got, buddy?
So from a generic sense, I think what you saw is a team in transition that obviously is missing probably some key personnel, but I like the crispness of the offense. It just felt like we knew what we were doing. You could see that the wide receivers were getting the proper depth, that there weren't a lot of false starts, holding penalties, things of that nature that show that there's an understanding of what's going on with offensive execution. I like the tight end play. I thought every one of those guys showed that they have the capability of being.
Brandon Frazier stuck out to me.
He really did, didn't he? And
Tyler Fromm
put a move on somebody.
Yeah.
Put that old stanky leg on him.
He did.
I was really surprised at the athleticism that the tight ends displayed. Quarterbacks, it's really hard to tell in a spring game because so much of that is scripted. They're showing it's very vanilla on defense. And what they're not being able to show you right now is who knows the most about the offense. When blitzes are coming and the defense are making changes in the back end and they're rotating their safeties and everything else that goes with that in an actual SEC game, you're not seeing that right now. So if adjustments need to be made in play calls or alignments or shifts and protections, you just didn't see a lot of that from the quarterbacks. What I thought you did see were people that, for what they were given, they understood where to go with the football. Now, was it always on time? Was it always accurate? No, but they knew where to go, which means that they're learning on the whiteboard as far as the execution of the offense is concerned. I think you'll get a clearer picture of that, obviously, in the fall when Zach Calzada's in the mix.
Yeah.
And I think what I did take away from quarterback is Robbie Ashford is an exceptional athlete. And I have to take ownership of this. And I hope Robbie doesn't watch the podcast. And if he does, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm sorry in advance. But when we took his commitment, I texted Jay Lee immediately and I said, premature tape. I'm going to say right now, I was wrong, period. That kid is an exceptional athlete. He showed a lot of progress in his 3 weeks on campus in spring. I'm excited to see what he can do in the future. I don't know that he can start next year and overtake Zach or TJ, but what he showed me are capabilities of being a true Power 5 quarterback and having the capability of really playing that position. He's not just an athlete. So
that's what I didn't think he was. That's
right.
Yep.
I'm with you, Jay Lee. I thought he's an athlete. We don't really need this guy. You've already got a D Davis. Well, what he showed me is he far exceeds what D was capable of. He's got a nice upside to him. He just needs to be developed a little bit longer. Needs some of that gestation.
Yeah.
So I walked away with it from positives. Obviously, there's some negatives. I mean, you saw TJ lock onto a receiver. You saw him stand on his back foot and try to trust his arm and overthrow a couple things. You saw the offensive line not be able to get a ton of push in the run game. But how much of that is because personnel wasn't there? How much of that was, the defense knew what was coming because the play calls were so vanilla? So I think there's positives and negatives to take away. But the overarching thing to me was we look better. We look like we understand scheme-wise what we're supposed to do. Now it's just about getting guys healthy and improving our personnel packages through the transfer portal this offseason.
Well, we weren't expecting a big group of a large group of recruits to be there Saturday, and there really wasn't. But there were some guys there. Sham was there from
Denmark.
That's cool.
Alpharetta.
And if I'm not mistaken, was his teammate there with him?
I think D. Creighton was scheduled to be there, but I don't know if he actually
he wasn't. He wasn't. But yes, that's who it was. I knew there was two guys coming from Denmark.
Yeah.
Home of former Auburn quarterback commitment,
Aaron McLaughlin.
Area McLaughlin.
There you go.
Who I
Where
think
he's
ended up signing NC State or somewhere.
Yeah, but
he's already in the transfer portal.
Was it Jacksonville State?
Dude, that was such a Gus recruit, wasn't it? I mean, come on, dude. I ain't hating on you, big dog, Aaron McLaughlin, but I mean, that was one of those guys. Listen, that was one of the guys when I interview. I've interviewed many quarterback recruits, right? And you know when you're talking to a leader, and when you're talking to they got that mentality to be a leader at the college level. And at no point in my time of interviewing this cat who was committed to Auburn for I don't know how long, 2 damn years, it felt like, did I say, this is the future. And again, dude, listen, he's better than me.
Look, listen, but there, Gus went on a streak there with him and Chael Garnett and Tyler Queen and a handful of others where it was just,
these days I would like to sit down with him and say, what were you thinking? Like, man, I don't know that he missed on too many quarterbacks, and Aaron McLaughlin being, I guess, the latest. He actually signs.
Well, he ended up dropping when Chad Morris came in. They dropped Aaron McLaughlin and picked up D Davis. So
okay,
I guess technically you got to give him credit for that. But D's now transferred out, and I think he's probably going to land at a Memphis.
You're right.
I think D is going to University of Texas San Antonio.
Is that where he's going now?
I believe so.
Definitely a drop in competition.
Actually, a great fit because they were undefeated last year.
I think so. Either undefeated or one loss. I can't exactly
lost
remember.
at the end or something like that.
Yeah, Coach Traylor out there has really done a good job on elevating that program.
It's an up and coming program. UTSA.
Okay.
It's an up and coming program over there in Texas.
They compete against Alpha Chi and Kappa Sig.
Yeah.
Oh man. Who else was there, Cole, at the 8A? I know Sham was there. We talked to Kai Preem.
Yeah,
Kai Preem.
Isaiah Robinson.
Troy Bowles.
Troy
Big
Bowles.
time
Yes.
linebacker.
Yes. Those are high quality guys. There wasn't a quantity of people there, but quality. When you're talking about Kai Preen, he is absolutely a top target. Troy Bowles, probably the number one linebacker on the board. Man, Christian Robinson was all over him, and they've got a really good relationship. I expect him to come back, if for no other reason, just out of respect for C-Rob. They're really close.
You can't forget Auburn Brock Glenn.
Oh, yeah. Let's get into that.
Let's talk about old Brock. Auburn Brock Glenn.
Auburn Brock.
So I went back in my Twitter. I was actually messaging him after the visit, and it popped up that I forgot all about this. I messaged this kid back in February or March, because that was when the first time, I don't know, Jhead, if that was you or somebody, but it was enough for me to reach out and say, hey man, are you hearing from Auburn? He was like, yeah, I kind of hear from, every once in a while. I was like, and I never responded. So obviously it wasn't like, yeah, man, I talk to him every day. So I just kind of forgot about this guy, right? And then we know Christopher Vezina visited Auburn, I think once or twice during the spring. And Auburn was probably in his, legitimately a top 2 or 3 team for him. But he committed to Clemson. You saw Brock Glenn come in, and that was Auburn had the foresight to go, we're not going to get Vezina. We're not going to put all our eggs in that basket. Let's bring in Glenn, who's obviously our number 2. Let's get him on campus. Let's view him up and down. Let's get to know him face to face. And then if we like him, we'll offer him, make him and push hard for him. And apparently that's what happened.
Yeah.
Didn't realize all the history that his family had with Auburn enough to freaking name him Auburn.
Yeah, that is.
When we saw him, he had on his name tag on the sidelines before the game, and it was like Brock Glenn.
Yeah,
I think it was in the middle. Of course, that was wrong. That's his first name. Auburn is his first name. But yeah, so his family's all Auburn, according to Brock. His grandfather graduated in 1963 from veterinary school. Was big Auburn family. He's in Memphis, but he said, when I told him I was coming to Auburn, they all said, load up, let's go. And they all came down for a day game. Brock Glenn left with an offer, I think on Sunday. And you got to think Auburn's a really good spot for him. Now, I don't know much about him as a player. I haven't watched his video or anything like that. That's for you guys. I just know I felt like after talking to him, messaging with him for several days, that I would probably, I'm not going out on a limb here by saying Auburn's the team to beat, in my opinion.
No, definitely not. I think Auburn is the team to beat. I don't know if I told you about him, Jeffrey, or maybe we just heard about him around the same time, but he was a name that came up a little while back because I think was just looking through the quarterbacks, and he was a guy that didn't have an offer yet. There's a couple other guys, and I was curious. Vezina's probably number 1. You got Dante Moore from Michigan that came down, and that's kind of not going to happen. One of those deals.
That's one of those. Hey man, we got him on campus. That's pretty cool, but
yeah.
Right. Let's be realistic here.
Right. So more realistically, I was just curious. You got this really high board of quarterbacks, and another one was the guy that's committed to Tennessee now. I don't know how to say his name. Ian Maleva.
Yeah, I am a believer.
Yeah.
Something like that. I am a believer. Yeah.
Yeah. I am a believer, I think is how you say it. But anyway, I'm butchering it here. Look, we all know that my pronunciation / enunciation of names.
Jeffrey can't take that. He can't handle that.
Dude, I'm not putting it past these parents these days. I am a believer.
That's his last name.
Oh, okay.
His first name is Nico.
Oh, really?
There we go. Let's just stick with Nico.
Nico But anyway, that was another guy, and the name Brock Glenn came up around that February, March time, and I was like, okay. And then I heard more and more about him, like, okay, Vezina's probably number 1, and realistically, if something doesn't go, if we don't end up getting him, we probably move to Glenn, and there's about 10 other guys, but Glenn would be at the top of that next tier. I was like, okay, interesting. And that came to fruition this past weekend. So,
Jhead, what do you think about Brock Glenn? Is this a holding Gardner?
I think so. I mean, listen, I've been very impressed with quarterback evaluations under this staff. I think they do a fantastic job of IDing guys that possess the traits that they want in a quarterback to be able to execute their offense. I heard about Glenn when me and you were having a conversation, probably January, February-ish, and that our quarterback analyst, and I'm trying to think of his name, his brother's the wide receiver coach at Ohio State.
Heartline.
Yeah, Mike Hartline. Was evaluating several guys that we had not offered yet. That our board at that time was Chris Vizina, Dante Moore, and Jaden Rashida. But they were evaluating several guys like Brock Glenn, Marcus Stokes, Ricky Collins Jr. out of New Orleans. And that Glenn ended up being kind of the guy that they locked on to as, you know what, this is the guy we're going to pivot to if we don't feel like we're in it for one of our top of the board guys. So started kind of to watch his tape, love his pocket mobility, the way he moves, his throwing motion, his ability to transfer his weight from his back to his front foot. I mean, he's really technically sound. Doesn't have an overpowering arm, but has the kind of arm that can make every throw on the football field. And I think he's really improved. You know, a lot of these kids change, their bodies change, they get stronger because the last thing we saw in them was 6 months ago at this point. I mean, I think the last time this kid played was November. Well, I don't know what you guys remember about being 17, but you changed a lot from the November that you're 17 going into the fall of turning 18.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you grow significantly. I think Auburn was very impressed by what they saw physically when he came on campus. He really had a standout showing at the recent Rivals 5-Star Series camp down in New Orleans where he was the quarterback MVP. He's set to compete in the Nashville Elite 11. And I think this is the kind of kid that's going to be a sleeper that they capitalized when they were in Boise. They always found quarterbacks that could produce. Always found quarterbacks that could get production out of. And I feel like he's very similar to Holden Gerner in that he's going to rise up the rankings once you kind of see him compete against some other national level guys.
When I saw, and listen, hey, this kid's like 6'2", 6'3", legit, man. I mean, I'm 6'1" with shoes on, and I was kind of looking up at him. He's a big old boy.
He's pretty tall, yeah.
But I was thinking the exact same thing. Harsin, from what I know about Brian Harsin and his history with, or thinking back to Boise, this is prototypical quarterback, just like Holden Gerner is. And I wonder if we're going to start to see these TJ Finleys kind of being weeded out as he recruits and develops his type of guys.
Yeah.
If he stays here for the next 4 years, you're going to see that quarterback room flip on its head, guaranteed.
Yeah, right.
It's going to be filled with guys that are more in that Holden Gerner. And now look, I think they're looking for guys that have athleticism.
Sure.
And when you watch both Holden and Brock's tape, you see functional athleticism. It's not like those guys are statues back there in the pocket.
Right.
They can move a little bit. Now, they're not Robbie Ashford.
Yeah.
But they're not Ben Lear.
No, they're not Ben Lear.
No.
You know,
no offense, Ben. You're my boy.
Yeah, they're not TJ Finley. You know what I mean?
Brandon Cox.
Yeah.
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 Even Zach Calzada can move. You know what I mean? He can evade the rush and has very good pocket mobility as far as that's concerned. So was extremely impressed with what I saw. I think, like I said, you're going to see him as a guy that's going to rise in the rankings. And Cole, I'm more interested to see what you saw in his cut-ups. I know you've already been through it.
Oh, yeah.
You thumb through them quicker than I do. So
what
did you see?
I want to say first, you know, if you're somebody who's not sure how to evaluate an evaluator, if that makes sense, like in other words, you don't know how to trust our word on saying, oh, Harsin's really good at evaluating quarterbacks. He's really good at finding quarterbacks. One of the main characteristics you can look for is go back and watch all of his quarterbacks. They look like clones of each other almost.
Yep.
They do the same things. They all work well in the pocket. They all make great decisions. They're all timely with their throws. If you look at people who maybe aren't great quarterback developers, and we talked about Gus Malzahn earlier, you know, but they all look different. Every quarterback does something different. They have different characteristics. They never hone in.
Right.
Well, you hit it to a T. I mean, it was just a mixed board of prospects that all did different things.
Dual threat guy, pocket guy. You know, it was whoever we had the best chance of signing that year.
Yeah, right. And I'm not calling anybody out here, but when you see them all doing the same things, that means they're being coached to do that, right? Yes. Okay, so in that case, you can take a guy like Brock Glenn, who, in my opinion, is not as good as Christopher Vizina. That doesn't make him that. Yeah, I'm just being fair here, and I still think that Brock Glenn is a good quarterback prospect. I think he's one that could benefit from a year or two being behind other quarterbacks and learning the system and developing that arm talent. I think his arm talent's pretty good. I don't think he puts as much zip on the ball maybe as Holden Gerner. But that decision making, that pocket presence, those are the things that are really, really difficult to coach, and he's got that. And you can just see that he's such a good commander of the offense, and he's not going to make a lot of mistakes.
And how quickly he gets to his second and his third reading, you can see that.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is just not easy to coach at all. I mean,
no.
So it makes me feel more comfortable that a staff with Brian Harsin and Eric Keesaw, who have done this and showed results, would take a guy like him. I think they will do well with a guy like him.
I agree. And I think a lot of fans instantly want to try to compare him to Sean White, and the kid's much bigger than Sean. And when I watch him on tape, and look, I know this is an Auburn podcast, but he reminds me of Mac Jones. At that age, the way he spins it, it's not an overpowering arm, but an accurate arm and the ability to get it to all levels against the defense. He looks a lot like Mac at that age.
Well, listen, I remember watching Mac when he was coming out of high school and Alabama signed him. I'm always interested in the quarterbacks they sign. And he didn't wow me. I mean, he was good, but he wasn't Tua coming out of high school at all. But he was probably better than Tua by the time that he was playing over there. They just know how to develop the guys, and that's exactly what Harsin knows how to do, and he's shown it so many times. And I just, and this is my point. I go back to Robbie Ashford, what you were saying. When I saw that, at one time he was a target for Gus when Gus was at Auburn, being right down the road from Hoover, a 4-star guy. I remember seeing him and going, I just don't know if that's going to work out with Gus, right? I don't mean that in a bad way, but knowing that Harsin's picking the guy up, I say, okay, well, there might be something there. He's really athletic. I want to see what they do with him. That's kind of where I think we both stand on that, right, Jhead?
I couldn't agree with you more, Cole. When you have somebody that has constantly or consistently gotten production out of the quarterback room, like they consistently at Boise State threw for around 3,000 yards and 20-plus touchdowns every season.
Yep.
I'm hoping that we get that this year out of Zach Calzada, and that's what I see in the future with Holden Gerner and a kid like Brock Glenn.
Yeah.
Jhead, are you expecting Zach Calzada to be the quarterback September 3rd?
If he's not the starting quarterback September 3rd, I anticipate him to be the starter by the time we play Penn State. I think there's a possibility that this quarterback competition could play out through the first 2 weeks. I mean, I think we've got some lackluster opponents in San Jose State and Kennesaw State or something of that nature. So you could see multiple quarterbacks play in those first 2 games. But my anticipation is by the time we get to the meat of our schedule, when we line up against Penn State, Zach Calzada is going to be the starter.
Me too. And I'm saying that not because of what Calzada done, just because I just don't see it with TJ Finley. I just don't, man. I'm going Calzada by default.
I appreciate the honesty.
I mean, he's a guy, a serviceable backup. But
yeah,
I think, and I'm curious to see what Calzada looks like. I think he's more in the mold of what Brian Harsin is recruiting right now. I think he's more in the mold of Holden Gerner and Brock Glenn. So I think that's I think big picture here. I think Zach Calzada is presumed leader of this offense by the end of the year. I'm guessing Penn State game myself. Like you said, if get some mop up duty, seeing multiple quarterbacks those first couple of games when it gets serious. Zach Calzada,
seeing what they do live. How do they make decisions? Because that's a big thing to Harsin.
He would have to tank, right? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Zach Calzada, in his time in those first 2 games, would absolutely have to tank for him not to be the starter come Penn State.
In my opinion, yes.
Hey,
I think
me
so.
too.
I tell you what, I just hope by the Penn State game we don't see a 3 to 4 quarterback rotation with with the fullback taking a snap and throwing it out of a pirouette or something like that.
Hey, look, the Cox
My
Cat is a
heart can't
thing of
take it.
beauty, Cole. Look,
Oh.
that's something that's going to go down in history as one of the
Oh,
all-time boneheaded play calls in Auburn football history. You can bank on that.
That whole Clemson game where they were rotating quarterbacks the whole time. Gosh.
Three of them in the first
Sometimes you're
quarter.
just too smart, fellas. He's just too smart. He was way ahead of his time.
I'm
Way
telling you.
ahead. Way ahead. Brock
Ooh.
Glenn. Who else was there, Cole?
Carmelo English.
Carmelo English.
I believe he was there.
He was there and released a top
yes.
5 shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
Carmelo English, his second trip of the spring. He came earlier for a meet and greet with Ike Hilliard shortly after Hilliard was brought in. And I believe that was a practice. I don't know. I don't think that was a practice. I think he just came up to meet Ike Hilliard and then came back Saturday by himself. Obviously, Parker didn't come with him or anybody like that. I think there might have been an underclassman with him. But I thought that was big, man. To me, he's a dude they can get, and he's a dude they really need. Right? Wide receiver is a big
100%.
And
I think he has definitely more gettable than he was 2 or 3 months ago. Right now,
no chance 2 months ago.
No, not at
If
all.
you had asked me, I would have said, hell no.
Yeah.
On any of the kids from Phoenix.
Right.
That's the exact answer.
Yeah.
Now I think Tamari and Parker still in that. I don't think he'll visit Auburn. I don't.
No.
But Carmelo with Ike Hilliard with immediate playing time, close to home, and I feel like Auburn will be in that one till the end.
Mm-hmm.
Another big visit. Like I said, there was maybe 5 or 6 big time guys there. Not a lot, but the quality was certainly there, and we might start seeing some decisions. We know we talked about Joshua Horton said commitment soon, although he just released the top 10. That's kind of the status quo these days with these recruits. They want to get their top 10 out, then their top 5, and then their commitment. You know, they want to get all their stuff. So that was kind of, in my opinion, both Joshua Horton top 10 is the first step in the process of committing. He's got his commitment. You know, he just wants to do. He wants to go do his checklist. Brock Glenn told me he's got the Nashville Elite 11 in May 15th, and it's going to be soon after that, basically at the end of May. So maybe another month, 5 or 6 weeks before Brock Glenn is ready to go. Jhead, who was who are the other schools in there with him?
So it's Missouri, Oklahoma State, and Mississippi
OK State. He wanted to visit OK State, and he was going to compete in Elite 11. Mississippi State, OK State, Missouri. That's right.
And if you look at who the head coaches are at each of those 3 schools, they've all had success in developing quarterbacks. I mean, I don't think anybody can debate the fact that Mike Leach has produced quarterbacks in every season that he's ever been the head coach.
Is Gundy still at OK State?
Oh, yeah. I'm a man. I'm 40, still going
Hell
strong
yeah.
at OK State.
He's 50. He's
40.
55 by now, ain't he?
Gotta be.
At least.
And he had that flowing mullet about 2 seasons back.
Oh,
He
yeah.
had the perm in that thing.
And then, of
There's
course,
somebody
Drinkowitz.
Somebody on our board was somebody on our board was like, man, anybody that the Pirate wants at quarterback, that's who I want.
That's a pretty good source reference to have on your resume, isn't it?
It sure is.
So. I would say so. And look, Eli at Missouri is no slouch when it comes to quarterback evaluation. I mean, I think he's done a really good job at Missouri to this point. So 4 good schools all in the mix there. I like where Auburn stands at this time.
Oh, yeah.
And I think something dramatic would have to change for us not to land Brock Glenn's signature come 1st of June. I think he may take another visit or so, maybe back to Auburn back into May. And then maybe we can kind of get that one in the fold and work on another guy who's the running back out of Montgomery, Jeremiah Cobb.
Jeremiah
close
Cobb.
to making a decision.
Yeah, Jeremiah Cobb.
You've already got an official visit on the books from our big offensive lineman out of Florida, Clay Whedon.
Yeah.
He may make a decision after that's done. I mean, you're right. I think you're starting to see people start to narrow the board down. And like we talked about before, I don't think this staff is going all in saying, hey, we got to have 20 commitments by the time we get to August. I don't think that's the case at all. I think they want to get about 8 to 10 guys that build the base of the class and then put themselves in the best position they can with some of those high-profile prospects that they really want.
Do we have a
Right.
position 5-2 this week?
We do. We have a wide receiver.
Speaking of, I was thinking, well, I can think of 3. I would probably put on my list, and that's Nakai Poole, Carmelo,
Yep.
the Lockhart kid. I'd put him on there just because he's going to be part of that group. You know,
Yeah.
be a kid you take later. Kai Preen. Who's the kid from Tennessee who's in the NFL now? He kind of plays running back, wide receiver. He's number 20.
Kamara?
No,
Alvin Kamara?
he's a JUCO kid that went to Tennessee. He's now in the NFL. He's really good in fantasy. I wish I had him a couple of times because you can
Are you
slide
talking
him.
about the kid from
Cordero Patterson.
Cordero
Yeah.
Patterson, yes. I thought he was going to come to Auburn at one point. So Cordero Patterson was the guy who was who was mentioned to me when I asked about Kai Preen. Obviously, Auburn's recruiting him at wide receiver, but man, he can do a little bit of everything. He's a really good athlete. He can play running back if you needed him to. But that was the name that was thrown at me when I was asking about Kai Preen. Cordero Patterson. Could you know how he does? He can run the football. He can catch the football. He can do a little bit of everything if you need him to.
Yeah,
But
that
yes,
dude was good.
I would put Kai Preen on my wide receiver list. I tell you what, is it Malik Benson?
Yeah.
Who's a JUCO kid.
Yeah.
Now, I think he had a top 5 that excluded Auburn not too long ago.
Did he?
I believe he dropped a top 5 that excluded Auburn. I had a hard time probably with the 5th name, and that's why I put Jelani Thurman, who's a hybrid wide receiver / tight end. Because I think we're going to if we take Jelani Thurman, I don't think we're taking him as the only tight end in this class. I think a guy like the kid that just visited from out in Arizona, and that was a massive visit to get him here. We're going to take 2.
No, Auburn's on there.
Yeah, Auburn made it. I'm looking at it right here.
Did he?
Oh, I mean, it's like a top 20, dude. But yeah,
So
Auburn.
is that what it is?
It's 11, top 11.
Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Florida, Oklahoma, Oregon, Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida State, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Yeah. So Auburn's still in it with him. And I only put him on there because I talked to him. And this was back, I think, when Auburn offered and he was planning on taking a visit. Obviously, his recruitment has blown up since then. If he's got those schools in there.
I'll give you another name too to add to the list. Would be William Foles from.
Yeah, I saw you. He was in Auburn's top group. I mean, Auburn was in his top.
He was on my back end, and he's had UCF, Miami, Auburn, and one other in his top group. Cole, is that right?
Yeah. Well, actually, UCF did not make it. They are the leader on the RPM, the recruiting prediction machine. They did not make his top 10. USF made it.
Okay.
Interesting. I have heard that a coach may be by to see him when they get on the road here. So that's a guy to keep in mind too. I think he's a pretty big target.
Who's
just
this?
hasn't William Foles.
William Foles, okay.
I don't think he's
he's a good looking kid, good athlete, that's for sure.
Has Auburn offered him yet?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
We've offered and I think eval season in and of itself is going to be really interesting for this.
Oh,
staff.
yeah, I know him.
Yeah, I believe it was Rock Bellantoni that offered him when he was making his rounds through the state of Florida and finding some guys there. So he's a guy to keep an eye on too. I think he would be low on my list, but definitely one to think about. And he wants to visit, and I know that a coach is probably going to be about to see him. So definitely a guy there, and he's a good player. His highlights are excellent.
Yep, and he's a guy that hasn't made it to campus yet, so they probably don't have an official height and weight on him. So it's good to kind of eyeball and see him in person.
Yeah, I tried to get in touch with him to see what was going on. I believe his phone was broken.
In there.
And actually was. You hear that, but I think it actually was.
It actually was.
Just now getting back to having a phone. So
I feel you, Big John.
I talked to him on Twitter a little bit about that. So yeah.
I'll be interested to see if they do the old cylinder block test with him, where they put you against the brick wall.
Yeah.
Tie the other end to your tallywhacker.
Do what, buddy?
Tie the one end of the rope to the tallywhacker and the other end to the Revenge of the Nerds or something. Y'all remember that? You put them up
Old
on
school.
ledge.
Oh, it's old school.
Yeah. I'm so old. My old school was Revenge of the Nerds.
So it's scouting trick. I actually saw it done in person. So that a cylinder block is 12 inches, right? So
I didn't know that.
So if a kid's claiming he's 6'1" and he's not taller than that 6 line against a cylinder block wall, then he's lying about his height. So that's an old school evaluation trick. I had an interesting conversation with the guy that's in the player personnel world and kind of some of the things they go through, how they eval things, the things they're setting up, making sure you're doing it right because you're at a track practice at 6 that morning and hopefully catching a football practice by 6 that afternoon. So a lot of interesting evaluation that's going to be going on from this staff with guys they haven't been able to get on campus just yet.
Hey, we got Easter weekend coming up, so I got to get on the road. But I will say this: next week we're going to be a more liberty when it comes to when and where and how long we can record. We're going to get a new producer next week. I just learned that today, so we might even go 2 a week if we've got the material for it.
How about that?
Hey, any closing thoughts? I want to get to some how about yous, but Jhead, I know you came in late. Anything you want to get in before we get off?
Just to say how big, once again, getting a commitment from T Love is. Interested to see how, what the next who the next domino is to fall. Is that Jeremiah Cobb? Is that, his teammate at Langston Hughes? How quickly do we get Brock Glenn into the mix? That's kind of the building the baseline of this class. And that's really where I'm kind of interested at. And then who gets an offer coming out of eval season? Who's a guy that we're looking at, or maybe we ramp up communication with because, hey, we saw this guy in action and he's better than we thought. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my closing thought for this episode.
Eval season starting April 15th, which is today.
Well, tomorrow.
For the listeners.
Well, today for those that are listening.
Yeah. How about you, Cole?
Yes, I got one. As per usual. Skinny's Pimp.
Oh man.
Yep, that's my guy, man. He's been on it this week. He's been all over it. I always like what he makes me laugh every time. It never fails. Everything he says is hilarious to me. And for God's sakes, give Sean Jackson the football for his sake.
Man, every time I see Skinny's Pimp post, I just want to say Doc Dumpster.
Come on,
what I mean?
Yeah. Doc, yeah.
Jhead, what you got? You got anybody this week?
Yeah, I'm gonna tip my hat to Swamp Eagle.
Okay, nice.
I felt like he's had some good perspective this past week as far as checking expectations and basically having the viewpoint of things are never as bad as they seem or never as good as they seem. Just, kind of let things play out. So I think that's a good perspective to have this time of the year.
Okay, I've got a few. I've got Smoke One, who is probably a how about you guy by now, but man, he really gave us a big 2 thumbs up about our recruiting coach. Really appreciate what he said. Mountain Hunter 56, appreciate you, man. Big how about you to you. Big how about you to the name. I saw this the other day. I was like, man, this is how about you worthy. It's Jordan, not Jordan. It's Jordan, not Jordan, but he spells it the same. Because it's spelled the same. I thought it was pretty witty. How about you to a Thorn at Horn? And how about you to JMB 11? How about you to Tumors Trees 91? Yeah. And then I've got, how about you to Barton Lester, man? I don't know why, but I wrote it down. He's a big, I've always been a big fan of Barton Lester. I'm a fan of the walk-ons, man. Always have been.
Is he a fan of the show?
Yes, let's just say he is. He's a huge fan. He always listens. He's texting me right now, wanting to know if he can come on the show.
I believe. I believe.
And listen, a real world, how about you to this dude named Tucker Posey, man? I dropped my notebook Saturday at the A-Day game, and he found it. And he was like, hey, I think I have no idea how he knew it was me. I found your notebook. And I was like, cool, man. He goes, I'll drop it by. And I was like, no, man, I'll come get it. He's like, no, I'm about to go out. I said, cool. I'll leave you a couple of dollars in my mailbox, bring it by, drop it off, because I'm going to be gone. He was like, nah, man, don't worry about it, dude. Me and my buddy, we read all your stuff. We got plenty of basketball scoop and we good. I said, hey, man, respect, big dog. Drop it in. He did, and he left my money in there too.
How about that?
He read through my notebook and all the scoops. I said, I'm good, dude.
Hey, that reminds me, Jay Lee, one more horse trainer, I believe is his username. Met him this weekend at the 8A game. He recognized me out of a crowd. That's the first time, probably the last time that'll ever happen. So that was awesome, man. I talked to him for a good bit. He loves what we do over here, and we love him for that. So that's awesome.
Appreciate
He
you.
didn't call you Rascal Flats when he saw you?
Yeah. He's like, hey.
All right, man. I'm seriously about to wet my britches. Hey, listen, I got to get on the road. I hope y'all have a happy Easter, man. Hope you spend time with your loved ones, your family, whatever people closest to you. We're going to be back next week with some more recruiting intel for Cole Pinkston, for Jhead. I'm Jeffrey Lee. Please stay out of the left lane. It's mine. See you.